What's going on? This is Ryan with Automatic Comics, and we have got a pretty interesting video today. More 9.9 CGC fun to talk about. Now, honestly, I don't really have anything against the 9.9s or the 10s or any of that. I just think this is all really interesting. I really think it's all interesting. I like these types of little kind of like mysteries or things that you're trying to solve. It's very much like the scam situation from back in December, where you're trying to dig through numbers and dig through listings to try to find stuff. And I just think it's kind of fun. And so I'll probably keep making videos about this whole 9.9 thing for a while. But with this one, somebody that watches the channel reached out and they found something really interesting. I asked if I could share that here. And so we're going to be going over some new information on these 9.9s. Actually seems that it proves something that I was speculating on. Also, it just it's kind of funny to me because it almost seems like there's all these new 9.9s coming out and the potential for lots of new 9.9s. People don't seem to really care all that much in terms of what they're paying for them. We've got a comic link auction that's been going on, and there were some big sales for 9.9s. People still paying big money for 9.9s. So let's get into this. Let's check all this out. All right, so before we get started, please remember to hit that like button and hit the subscribe button if you'd like to see more content like this. So if you haven't watched my prior video, this all kicked off because there was a top 10 video by Comic Tom where he mentioned that he was talking about Wolverine Limited Series #1. And he mentioned that there were 10 new 9.9s for that added over the prior month. And we had seen some things like on some internal chats that I've been talking with some people about some new 9.9s and 10s and stuff. And I decided I was interesting to make a video about it. Like once that was out there, I was like, this will be fun. We'll talk about this interesting topic. And with the 10 new 9.9s, I mean, that's a big deal. Like that's a big deal because there were only 28, at least 28 universals. There were only 28 universals adding 10. And there hadn't been a new 9.9 for something like 7 years in that book. And all of a sudden you got 10 of them. And we've been talking about the whole 9.9 pre-screen, thing ever since Matt Nelson mentioned it back on that interview a while back. And there isn't a 9.9 pre-screen, but it seems like people are finding ways to get these 9.9s, or CGC has started looking for them more. Because that was one of the things Matt Nelson had said in that interview was basically like there are 9.9s in 9.8 cases, and we just weren't able to really check for them. It was too much to check for them at that point. And so it seems like they're checking for him now. So I've said this before. I don't think it's necessarily a huge impact on 9.8s. It probably will have some impact if these really do start coming out more. The big impact is going to be on the 9.9s. Like if you have 9.9s, what's the price change going to be for those books? But let's get into the details on this, like the new findings for this. So he reached out, and so what he had done is he had looked at that the cert number for the Wolverine Limited Series #1. And I'll share my screen here so you can kind of something else to look at while we're talking here. So this is on Comic Connect, and this is that Wolverine Limited Series #1, the 10.0 that came out. And so that was the only one we really knew about that we'd seen the picture of. There was a picture of Vincent Zarzolo. He's like, just got this 10.0 back. It's in the next auction. But then what we started doing is we started looking at, this serial number here. That's what I did in the last video. And you look at all the other books that are part of this submission. Because with CGC, the first, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 numbers are the submission, like that person's submission. And the next 3 numbers count up from 001 to 25, depending on how many books are in that submission. And so we looked at all the ones in this specific submission, and we found 3 9.9s, 1 10, and then the 21 9.8s, and which is just wild. Like for a book from 1982 to get, that's like, even if they came straight from the press, like that's a crazy number to get, which is also one of the things that makes people go, like not really like it. But what he did was he looked at the submissions around this one. So this one has this number 7 here. He looked at 8, 5, and 6. and they're all Wolverine limited series #1. There were 77 copies of Wolverine limited series #1 submitted. And the biggest submission you can have is 25. So they'll get broken out into other separate submissions. So it really, like, I had been speculating that one person got all 10 of those 9/9s. And this pretty much confirms that. So, I mean, Comic Connect is basically sitting on 10 9/9s. It looks like, speculating, it looks like Comic Connect is sitting on 10 9/9s of Wolverine limited series #1 that they just got back, as well as this 110 that's in this auction. And so we can show this here. Like, we'll go to we go to the CGC cert page, and so here's the same numbers but with a 5 instead of a 7. And this is one of those 9/9s. It's number 12. So this one's, and what I'll do is I'll just show you. I'm not going to obviously go through 77 books, but if we look at number 1, see here, it's a Wolverine limited series 9/8. And then if we look at number 25 for the end of this submission, it's a 9/8. Okay, so there were 25 Wolverine limited series #1s in this submission as well. And if we check number 12, it's a 9/9. If we check number 22, it's a 9/9. And if we check number 24, it is a 9/9. So that's that submission. Then if we go to the next one, which ends in a 6, so just kind of show you what I'm doing here. We paste this one here. We change this from 5 to 6, so it's the next group of books. And then we'll start with number 1 again. And you see it, Wolverine limited series #1, 9.8. Then if we go to copy this, and then we'll go to number 13. Here's a 9/9. It's number 13. Then we'll go to number 20. 9/9. Then we'll go to number 25. 9/9. And so that's, now we've accounted for the 3 in the original, 3 more in that number 5 submission, 3 more here in the 6th submission. Then if you jump up to number 8, so we'll change this to an 8, and you look at number 2, 9/9. There's the 10th. So there are 77 copies of Wolverine limited series #1 that were part of this, appears to be like block submission. And there were 10 9/9s. We can see all of them now. We can scroll down. You can see it. There's the 9/9 right there. 10 9/9s, 110. And now it wasn't 66 9/8. I believe it was just 65. And now that's how we're pretty sure, like we can be pretty sure that this was a 9/9 or a 9/8 pre-screen. Because if you look at this one from that number 6 submission, number 11, no grade in the grade category is a reject. So what this looks like is like this was and that final one with the 8 only had 2 books in it. There were only 2 books in that final one. So it just was 8001 and 2. So unless I missed one of the rejects, which I don't think I did, but maybe I did. It looks like out of the 77 book Wolverine limited series #1 9/8 pre-screen, they got 65 9/8s, 10 9/9s, and 110. That looks like what was done for this, and it appears that they are all at Comic Connect. Like moving 10 of those is that's a lot of 9/9s to have to move without just like crushing the market. I mean, I've seen that happen before. There was a book that I had bought, I remember, a number of years ago. It was one that a 9/8 hadn't sold for like 10 years, and one came up on Heritage. And it was like the first one in 10 years, it sold for like $2,500. And then like a week later, another one. And then a week later, another one, and another, and another, and another. And they just kept coming out. It's like somebody had found a box of these, because it was a pretty obscure book, a box of them, and must have gotten just tons of 9/8s, and they just sent them all to Heritage and they just rolled them out. It wasn't necessarily every week, but it was like every other week, and the price just kept going down, 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 down. So that's the same type of thing that can happen here. Like, these things are expensive, in a 9.9 because they are rare, because they don't come up for sale often. But when you have 10 new ones added like that, it's a different story. And to add to that, it's not just 10 new ones. Another one got added this week. Now I'm going to talk about that in a separate video, but just, so it's out there, we now have 39 9.9s. I think it's 41 when you add the 2 signature series ones. But we can, we can see that right here. If we go to, let's look up just one of these, and we can go to the census, and we can see that it's changed now. So where's that? Yeah. So census here. So now we have 39 9.9s, not 38 that we had last week. So even in this week, we added another one. So, I mean, it's so obvious that these things are coming. I mean, you can, at this point, you can try to deny it all you want, but like, this is wild. And obviously, I don't think every book is at risk of this. I think it requires a large number of 9.8s, which this has. It's going to be late bronze, copper through early modern. That's, I think, going to be the big impact for this. Like, if you have 9.8s in those and it has a bunch of them out there, I mean, I could see those prices like dropping. Like, if this happens in that book, like, I could see those prices dropping like 25-30%. And the 9.9s, I could see them just getting hammered, because like I said, they're valuable because they're rare. And when they're no longer rare, they're no longer valuable. But that's, that was that finding. I thought that was really interesting. I appreciate the, the follower of the channel reaching out with that, because that's a really cool finding. So finding all 10 of those new ones, and then it looks like they're all part of the same submission. So going on, like, following that, I was talking about how it seems like, for the most part, people don't seem to really care that much yet, because there are still big numbers being paid for these 9.9s out there. And there's this Comic Link auction that's going on this week and continuing into next week. And there were a bunch of 9.9s that were part of it. I mean, maybe it's people that are concerned that these 9.9s are gonna start piling up, and they decide, they want to move them. Because I feel like I've seen more. Maybe it's just because I'm aware of it. You know how that happens, where when you're looking for something, you see it, and it's always been there, but you just never really noticed, because I didn't care as much about 9.9s before. But it does feel like there's been more 9.9s in some of these auctions than there used to be. But let's go check out Comic Link. So I did a search for 9.9s, and you can kind of see some of the 9.9s that sold in this auction. Some of the well-known ones. You got the Secret Wars 8, New Mutants 87, Wolverine Limited #1, got an X-Force 2, X-Men 119. That's pretty early. That's a pretty early one. And then an X-Men 221. And a lot of these books, I mean, look at this: 1987. This one's 1991, 1982, 1990, 1984. Like, that's that era that you kind of should be concerned about. It's like late bronze, copper, early modern, like into that era. And so first we'll take a look at the X-Men 221, first appearance of Mr. Sinister. There are actually only 3 of these on census right now. But I mean, this is the type of book where we know there's just a million of these out there. I mean, there are tons and tons and tons of these books, and a lot of them still raw. This is the type of book where that could have a big impact on this price. I mean, someone paid $6,100 for this 9.9 because, yeah, there's just 3 right now. But how many are there really? Like, how many are sitting in those 9.8 cases right now that somebody's going to try to, do another big 100-book 9.8 pre-screen with X-Men 221? I mean, if we go and take a look at X-Men 221, we can kind of see what the multiple was on that book. And a 9.8 currently is going for, I mean, the low recently of 192, high, I don't know who paid 660. Maybe that was a newsstand, but it looks like it's going around like 250 right now, 250, 260. And so at $250 to $260, that's like 22, 23x multiple, something like that. This went for $6,000. And that's where you kind of look at the numbers for this, where if you got 25 of them, you submitted them all as a pre-screen, even if you just got back 199, that 199 immediately covers your costs for all those books. Then you got all these 9.8s. Maybe you have one that fails the pre-screen. I don't know. But that's what people I think are probably considering right now with this. And if you get back 3, I mean, you just more than tripled your money, probably. And if you got it back a 10, because there's no 10 for this, even bigger. Now, this only works as long as you're like the early mover, right? So you gotta think about that there. And I mean, to me, like, this was an early mover, like the Wolverine Limited one is early mover. And so who knows if that's going to start happening with these other books. Maybe they're already in there. Like, who knows what's going on with that. But this was the first one. I mean, like I said, like, I usually use a rough estimate of a 20x multiple for a 9.9. And this was like 22 or 23 times. So let's go to the next one. This was a huge sale. A huge sale. X-Force #2, second appearance of Deadpool. I was joking about kind of like a million with X-Men 221. I'm pretty sure there probably are a million copies of this out there. I mean, the print runs on these books at this time period were just ridiculous. And this was a 9.9 that sold for $4,600. So let's go look at X-Force #2. So X-Force #2. And here we go. We've got like a 9.8 of this book, last sale, $52. That's a pretty good return. 52, 69, 52, 97. I mean, this is like a $60 to $70 book right now. This book sold for $4,600. That's a 60, 70x multiple. That is massive. 60 to 70x multiple for this 9.9. And yeah, right now it's one of 3. But I would not be shocked if this does not remain one of 3. Like, that's what you need to be considering if you're putting money. Like, this isn't going to hurt the 9.8. I mean, like, what's it going to fall from $60 to $55? Like, maybe. Who cares? But this is going to hurt the value of a 9.9. I mean, look at that. I mean, in 2010, it sold for $610. So this jumped up. What's that? 7x almost, 6 to 7x in that time period in value for the 9.9. I mean, people are still paying big money for these 9.9s. Doesn't matter, if you go out and talk about it. It's like, it's still, they want that best book, but the risk is that these prices could drop significantly. Then let's look at New Mutants 87. This was a big sale too. New Mutants 87 9.9, again, one of 3, but we know there are just a ton of these books out there, especially in 9.8. So we'll go to, and let's look at the census real quick just for X-Men or X-Force 2. Like, you can see 2,632 9.8s. And that's just, I guarantee you there's way more of those out there. It's just, it's not worth it. Like, if it's worth $50 to $70, it's not worth getting the 9.8 graded. But a 9.9, and there's 4 now. It already changed. Okay, that's hilarious. All right, so when they created this listing, it was one of 3. It's already, where was that? It's already one of 4. So, like, in what, like, that listing's probably been out there 3 weeks. I think that's about like 2 to 3 weeks. And we've already added another one to the 9.9 there. So, hey, there you go. Got another one. All right, now let's look up New Mutants 87. And the part of the reason I find this so funny is just that, like, this is really fringe collecting stuff. But it's wild. Like, it's wild. Like, I do believe there are legitimate differences in grade between a 9.8, a 9.9, and a 10. The problem is that it seems like CGC maybe can't detect it without having other copies to compare against. And that's a problem. I think a book have to be able to be graded on its own merits, but that does not appear like what's being done here. Now, I'm not the grader. I don't get to decide that, but that's what it looks like to me. All right, so now New Mutants 87, a 9.8 going for as low as 300, but generally around $500 right now for this book. And this one went for 15,751. So a 30x multiple. That's a big multiple for a 9.9, especially for one with, again, let's take a look at that census. 2,254 9.8s. Still have three in here for this one. So I'm going to close some of these out. So still have three in here for this one. So they didn't jump yet in this week, but this is a book that very high likelihood that this book could add in quite a few 9.9s to this one. Now, finally, one disappointing sale was the Secret Wars 8. This one actually went quite a bit lower than what I was expecting it to do. So this one went for 7,899. There are a lot of 9.9s of this book, like I talked about in that last video. I think it's 23. So Secret Wars number 8. Let's check that one out. And so this book, granted, has dropped quite a bit in a 9.8 in the last, few months. You can see it's still kind of trending down. But in a 9.8, this one, it's like $450. So like my rule of thumb would have thought around 9,000. I was thinking this one would probably go around 10 because we had a very recent 9.9 sale of 10,800 in April. But this one went for 7,899. So, I don't know if this is a one-time blip. It's hard to say for sure if it's starting to trend down. Because like if you look at the 9.9s, I mean, this book had a sale of 16,800. I remember seeing copies on Instagram during the comic boom where like people were trying to sell them for like 20 or 21,000. I don't know if they did, but now we have this $10,800 sale, and then now we have another jump down, 7,899. Like that is a big risk with these books right now. Like your potential for losing thousands of dollars on these 9.9s is very high. I would be very, very cautious with them. All right. Actually, let's check. Let's make sure that no new, I don't think any new ones have been added for this. Yeah. Okay. No new 9.9s added for this one. Still 23. And then the last one, this one's a little more obscure, but it went for a lot of money. We had a Justice League number 1 9.9 signed copy, went for $2,850. But this is a book that in a 9.8 is like $100, 70 to $100. And so this is almost like around a 30x multiple for this book. And we can take a look real quick. I think this is the only 9.9 for this one. But again, it's one of those where it doesn't have a lot of value as a 9.8. And so there's not going to be as much motivation to get it graded. So there's probably a lot of very high grade raws out there. So for example, we take a look at this here, the 9.8 right here. Can't remember, was this a newsstand? No, it was not a newsstand. So the 9.8 right here, I mean, look, like the low 81, last 3 120, 100. I mean, it's like $100 book. And if we look at the census for this one, it's only 413 9.8s. There's the 199 signature series right here. But this is what, if you see this, and you go like, if this book sells for that type of multiple, the potential for people to try to target those books is pretty high. And so I think there's going to be a lot of searching out there, like based on what we can see here, that it appears that I don't really think like CGC changed their grading standards. I do think that it's not like it's better. It feels like they weren't checking for it. So they weren't really doing their job. Like that's what's frustrating. I know that's what's probably the most frustrating thing for people, is that they should have been looking for these 9.9s all along. It doesn't appear that they were, or at least after a certain point. Because I was talking about this with someone last night, where I said, like, a lot of the 9.9s that are out there feel like they were there outside of these like super moderns. I'm ignoring those. A lot of times when I see them, they have older cert numbers. It's like they were looking for them up until like 2012. And then all of a sudden they stopped, or just very limited. And then now we're seeing it seem like it's maybe ramping up again. Now, this is all just kind of speculation based on what I've kind of seen when I see 99s and the certain numbers and their grade dates. And, like how like the two Captain America 100 99s, I think were graded like back in like 2001. It's things like that where a lot of these 99s that were out there seem like they're graded a long time ago. And then maybe CGC just got too much business. I mean, that's kind of what Matt Nelson seemed to imply, is like it takes a lot longer to check for a 99, and maybe they just stopped checking. And I don't think that's an excuse. I think it kind of sucks, but it appears that they're either checking now, or the way to get them to check is to submit a whole bunch of copies at once, high grade copies of the same book. I mean, who knows? I mean, this looks like this submission was from Comic Connect. Maybe they talked with them and they're like, hey, I've got this big submission of high grade Wolverine limited number ones. I want you to make sure you check closely. And I don't know. So like, I mean, I don't know how that whole process went down. I just know that there were 77 Wolverine limited number ones that got sent in, and 10 of them got 99s. And if you are a 99 owner, that should freak you out. Like if you have books from like early bronze, silver that are 99s, I mean, I wouldn't be concerned about that. Like, I don't think that this is like softening of grading standards. I don't feel like it's that. I mean, I could be wrong. Maybe it is, but I don't feel like it's that. I just think that these books were always 99s and they just weren't getting graded properly. And 10s, but yeah, I just think this is really interesting. I know like it's a topic that can be real heated and everything. So I'm trying to come at it with like a light attitude. I think it's interesting. I think we're getting to see kind of like a shift in comic values, comic grading, whatever it is. And it doesn't happen all that often, and we're getting to see it real clearly. So just like I've talked about with like Mickey and Drew about this as well. Like the important thing is just that you need to understand what's going on, because even though some people say it's like, oh, you're only supposed to read comics or, that kind of thing. It's like these things are expensive. People spend a lot of money on them. And if you want to make sure that you aren't going to get screwed later on, having this kind of information is important, and understanding what's going on is important. And to me, what's going on is they are checking for 99s now, especially with large submissions of the same book. That's what it looks like. But we'll see as time goes on, like how these things are going to shift. And that's actually one of the things I'm planning on making some more videos about in the future is looking at how those 99s are shifting as time goes. But hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit that like button, subscribe button, notification bell. I'll see you in the next one.